Rod Carley is a writer, he's a professor, he's a theater director, he's an actor, designer, and producer, and he has produced and directed over 100 productions as we talk today. And he is the recipient of a number of awards along the way. And now, and we'll talk about it today, he's also a program host. So we'll learn lots about it. I think there's about the only thing that Rod doesn't do is ride a unicycle on his head. How you doing, Rod?
I'm doing great, Mike. It's always great to talk with you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. Good to see you. Last time we chatted, we were introducing your second book, Kin Mount, and we were all very excited about that. And of course, after reading it, we became such solid fans of not only the book, but your writing. It was marvelous. And this has been a wonderful journey for you with this book.
When you put a book out there and you get it out there and you're out to the public, you have no idea what's going to happen with it, right? And you just sort of cross your fingers and hope you find readers. And Kin Mount did. And it was kind of like the sleeper book of the year in many ways, and it just kept building and finding readers. And I think a lot of it was timing. We were in the middle of COVID, and the central character Dave Middleton, he's trying to put on a production of Romeo and Juliet in this small rural community against every possible obstacle, including a rural conspiracy that's trying to censor him, and he never gives up, and he keeps on no matter what it is, and the show must go on. And the show does go on. And so it's a funny book, but it was a celebration of, in a little way, the human spirit, the nature of how we have to come together as community, and that theater will always go on no matter what. And so I think it kind of became a tonic for folks during the times. And it was a book of, much needed humor, because we all need a laugh, but also was a book of hope, I think, and humanity and about the better sides of us all in the end. So yeah, and it's still out there and it's still selling. And I've got a few events this summer that I'm going to do that it's around Kin Mount still.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. And it received some attention from a few award granting bodies, so that sort of kept it out in the public eye.
Well, getting that nomination, being one of the 10 nominees for the Leacock Medal for Humor, that must have been a huge thrill for you.
Oh, yeah, it was, Mike. I mean, humor is a tricky thing to write. And, I've talked to other great authors of humor like Terry Fallis and others. And we've talked about, so often it's like, well, the serious books get the attention, right? Because everyone thinks anyone can write a funny book, and writing a joke is easy. And it's like the old adage, dying is easy, comedy is hard, right? That comes from the theater. It's true in the writing of comedy, and also comedy subjective, right? What's funny for one person isn't funny for somebody else. So anyhow, what I mean by saying that is that it was really an honor to be on that list, and to have the book recognized, and to have my writing acknowledged in that way. So it was huge.
Well, you worked very hard along the way. You did all sorts of readings and book signings. I'm not sure if you had any spare time in your calendar by the time you were done.
Well, you know what? Interesting you bring that up, because it's a different world for authors in these days. And so if if you sign on with a publisher and you're going to get your work out there, or if you're self-publishing, whatever means you're doing, you have to know that you've got to commit to marketing your book, getting involved with social media. It's not like unless you're like a Margaret Atwood or maybe a John Irving, where you can just write your book, throw it out there, and the world will come at it like a bunch of hungry puppies, right? Right? You can't be a sort of retiring author off in your cave. You've got to get out there and do that work to help your publisher get the book in the public eye, so that you can find readers. So yeah.
Now you are approaching on the calendar a new challenge, because Grin Reaping is about to come out.
That'll
be later in June, as I recall.
That's right. It's the official launch is June 18th, but folks that have pre-ordered it will start receiving copies during the week of, I think, June the 12th or something. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, in reading about it, I went to your website, and it says that it's a series of short stories,
Yes.
but they're all connected.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I've created this fictional character, Rudy Boyle, who is a college English teacher in Northern Ontario. And he's sort of stuck in middle age, and he's also stuck in the middle of all his siblings. And so it's sort of how Rudy translates the strangeness of his everyday life into a kind of a home movie prose. So the stories are all interconnected, and that it's all Rudy and his family that are in all the stories, but it's written from a first-person point of view of Rudy, and he tackles all sorts of issues from, climate change and mortality, gender, lizard people, coyotes, right? You name it. And he does it with a sort of a dry, self-deprecating wit. He's somewhat hapless at life, and he sort of takes the trivial things of life and exaggerates them and makes them into greater importance, and then the bigger things in life he sort of just brushes off, kind of in that Oscar Wilde-like tradition.
Kind of like what we all do on everyday
kind of what
life.
we all do, yes. And on a bigger level, Rudy through the entire collection is dealing with grief, right? Dealing with the loss of loved ones. And so the title came out of that. And when I sat down to write the collection, all I knew was I wanted to write this collection of short stories through this voice of Rudy Boyle, who can say things that Rod Carley can't always. And what it first came out of, like when I was 19 in high school, I loved books, and my favorite author at that time was J.D. Salinger. And, his fictional Glass family, they were like heroes for me at that time. Like they were these quirky role models living in New York City and the Upper East Side in this amazing, brownstone apartment. And I wanted to be an actor like Zoe and a guru like Seymour and a writer like Buddy. But, these were not career paths being encouraged by my high school guidance counselor. But unlike the Glass family and its 7 children, Salinger only had one sister. So he wrote all those Glass stories to fill that void. Now, I have one younger brother, my younger brother, Greg, and both of my parents are gone. And so I, in many ways, wrote these stories initially because I wanted to create a larger sense of family. Like, I guess in a sense of, I can see why Salinger did it, because I wanted to create that sense of family. And I wanted to examine the absurdities of life because, more and more, it's getting harder to write satire because it's writing itself in the real world. It's no longer satirical. What's going on. And
so true. Right.
And then I also wanted to write about the cope of and grief of losing loved ones because, the last line of the book is sort of the whole idea is that, we laugh because there's nothing else we can do.
Yeah.
So it's how we use humor, back and forth, coin of exchange, to stay on this planet and keep going. So I wrote the book as a tonic, and I was hoping also for readers too, in some ways, as we live through these crazy times, that hopefully through the anecdotes of Rudy Boyle, it'll give them a laugh, but also maybe some insight into how we need to sort of navigate and find ourselves situated.
Well, we're really looking forward to it.
Oh, well, thanks, Mike.
Along the way, through everything you've done, you've gathered together, and I'll call it a fan club, because we are. We're fans of Rod Carley. We love what you've accomplished. We love what you do. We love what you produce. And so when we see a new book coming out by yourself, we're energized. We look forward to it.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say, Mike. Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the point of view I take in all of my writing, I use humor as a way often to deal with more serious issues, because I think you can tackle more serious issues with humor. And, all my books, they need to end with hope. And in the end, there is a fundamental kind of kindness that exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
As eccentric and odd as they are. So there are some valuable states of being that I think we need to function within. So, and you know, my as my reading base grows, you know, it's thrilling for me, and those are the messages I'm going to continue to write in my work. Right, is ultimately there's got to be hope.
Well, we want to stress to people that you can go to Rod's website or the publisher's website, and
Yes, you can
pre-order a copy
Yes, you can.
right now. So don't delay, do that, and look forward to a big smile coming your way in June.
And I encourage my readers, Mike, to support your local books and booksellers. So if you want to pre-order, you can pre-order from any bookstore in this country, you know, so support that little, you know, local business in your community, because they can certainly use the help. And then, of course, after June 18th, the book will be available anytime to order. So, yeah. Yes.
Well, talking about local bookstores, you've got a brand new series going. You're now a program host, and you've got about 6 of them under your belt at this stage. And Rod Reads is something that is a recurring program. And I'm fascinated to know, what was the germ of the idea that led you to undertake yet another significant project? Okay,
well, there's a united energy force here that's very important. There's a local marketing company here in North Bay called Buzzmasters, right? And they're a bunch of young, talented media folks in their early to mid 30s. And I hired them to do the Kinmount launch, right? Because I had to do a live stream from my kitchen because we couldn't do a live event. So they organized that, come in, broadcast it. And I was really impressed by them. And they always kept saying to me, you know, we should find a way for you to do something else in this community, or something that's arts related that, you know, that promotes a positive message or something. And we would bounce ideas around and whatnot. And then they came to me about 2.5 months ago, and they said, you know, what would you think of like doing a show where you just read books? Because we really like when you read books. And I thought about, I said, you really, you think people want to like tune in and just watch Rod Carley read a book? I mean, they could watch paint dry, or they could, they might have more fun with their cat and a laser. But no, they were very insistent. And they said, you know, all you need to do is create the content, and we'll handle the rest. You know, you'll come into our studio, we'll organize the green screen images with what you ask to tell us what you want, and you just create content. So I said, I'll think about it. So I got back to them. I said, well, here's what I think I want to do. I will read occasionally from my own work, but only very occasionally. I will read from other authors' works, but I primarily want to read from Canadian authors' works, but I will read internationally if someone puts a request in. Like tonight's episode is with Maggie O'Farrell's Hamlet and Judith, which was a request from a reader, which is a wonderful book, but I digress. So, and I said, so I want to do that. And I said, I would like to each episode highlight a different independent bookstore across Canada, right? To make readers aware of all these wonderful bookshops and support bookstores. And then have a segment where I ask people, what are you reading? What's your bookmark doing? And then, and I think you're aware of, Mike, you're aware of this. I have this incredibly brilliant tabby cat named Hilton, who during the pandemic discovered that he had a certain amount of literary genius, which surprised me. And The Great Gatsby went in the public domain in January of 2021. So Hilton approached me and said, how would I feel about translating his writing from Tabby Cat into English if he started working on an adaptation called The Great Gatsby? And I said, well, let's see how you go. Well, Hilton, you know, he's smart. He's starting to write. So anyhow, I spent a year, you know, because I did a minor when I was doing creative writing at York. I did a minor in cat. So I'd learned a little bit about, you know, translating from cat to English. So so he's finished the first draft of his Great Gatsby, and then he gave me permission to read a chapter on each episode of Rod Reads, right? So and I do that. So and I think for many many of the viewers, that's become a highlight, because
it has.
Hilton is just, well, he's just exceptional. What can you say about him, right? He's channeling the muse of all those great felines before him.
And the beauty of The Great Gatsby is that it brings back images and memories of things like Wind in the Willows and novels where cats who are reasonably intelligent people,
Mhm.
very
Yes.
talented,
Yes.
can carry a whole story. So The Great
Yes.
Gatsby is definitely a
Yeah.
highlight of the program.
So it will, the catification of F. Scott Fitzgerald will continue. Yes. So, yeah. And Hilton's look right now. Hilton is he's actually looking for an illustrator now for his manuscript because he
Oh,
thinks
wonderful.
he thinks it
Wonderful.
might work, with, that kind of like A. Milne and Ernest Shepard kind of
Yeah,
feel. So we'll
yeah.
see. So Hilton's out there looking. I said, good luck, keep me posted. So
We'll see what
we'll
we
see what
see.
happened.
So the question comes, you're doing Rod Reads, and it
Mhm.
happens Mondays at 7 p.m.
And then it's available anytime
And then
after
it's
to watch it.
available
Yeah, at people's
online
leisure.
through
Yeah.
your Facebook page.
Yep.
But you have considerable responsibilities at Canador,
Yes, I do. Yep.
and then of course you've got your writing. How do you balance the time? How do you do
Okay.
this?
Well, a major thrust of when I can write full time is when I have my summer holidays from Canada. So say this past summer, because I'm on holidays for like 10 weeks. So my wife and I have a cottage down in the Sealy's Bay area on the Rideau system. So last summer, I just was writing every day, and that was a luxury to write 6-8 hours a day. So I did that, and I was working on the second draft of the next book that I'm working on. So how I juggle my life is usually I'm writing on weekends, right, around the Canada job. And then when I got chunks of time off, I'll do more intensive writing, and then summers. And Rod Reads is something where I prepare during evenings and then go into the studio. And once I go into the Buzzmaster studio, we go in. We've got a routine now. I approve the images that they've pulled together. We do a quick check, and then we do it. So, right. But there's that old cliche about, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And I think I understand more what it is because one's just used to like having to do that. And so you build up a life where you don't have any time to procrastinate because, right, everything, the whole deck of cards will collapse. And I think it comes from somewhere way back in acting school. And I have these moments with my students too. I said, you never want to miss a deadline, whether it's applying for a grant or, think of like you've got a show coming up, there's a definite deadline where opening is, or you got a publishing contract, or when it has to be ready. So we all have deadlines built into our lives. And when you're younger, you miss that first deadline, and you feel quite embarrassed and somewhat humiliated. Right. And on occasion that'll happen with a student of mine who hasn't got their lines down for such and such a date and whatnot. And then I'll ask them, how do you feel about that right now? And they're like, oh, I feel awful. I feel like a schmuck. I feel, I let myself down. And I said, good. You feel like you let yourself down, eh? I said, yeah, good. And they go, what do you mean good? I said, good. You ever want to feel that way again? No. Well, good. Then you won't. So that's it. I think it's because, no one wants to then put additional egg on their face and make the yoke about them. So I think that's a little bit for me. So I'm just driven to create. I think too, mortality enters into it, Mike. Being in my early 60s now, there's a sense of while I'm able to, and while the sun, there's lots I want to do. Yeah. So there's not like, I'm going to put this off and do this as a project, a decade from now. One doesn't know. So I want to keep doing as much as I can right now.
Yeah. Looking back over the years, and you've had a fascinating career. You've done so many different things. When you look back, is there any point in the early part of your life where something happened or something caught your attention? You said, wow, this has impact on my life. Like,
yeah.
Some period that you
there's a few things. That? Yeah, there was regarding theater, it happened when I was 12. And I had a childhood friend named Charles Haney, and then grew up in Brockville. And his parents took me and him to the Stratford Festival. First time I'd gone, I was 12, and it was during the Robin Phillips reign, and it was a production of Richard III starring Brian Bedford. And so I'm sitting there watching that, and I didn't understand I didn't understand Shakespeare, but I was mesmerized by the costumes and the actors and the voices and the movement and the emotion and passion, and I was just completely absorbed. And I think that's the moment that the light bulb went on in my head about live theater and the arts.
Yeah.
Right. And then with writing, I mean, I used to, okay, and then with writing, I used to come home after school when I was in grade 6 and 7. And every day I would write these little stories with pictures, and I would sit down and I would watch TV after school and sit in the living room on the floor at a coffee table and spend an hour writing that day's installment and draw a doodle of some kind. And, you know, they were just for my own amusement. And I realize now that the writer was in me way back then, but I hadn't realized it. And then when I was in high school, and I loved my English classes, and so that's when I first read The Great Gatsby and many other great books, and that's when I got turned on to Salinger. And when I read Franny and Zoe, it literally was like I've met the family I wanted to grow up in.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against my own family, which I loved, but that was the family that I fantasized about being a part of, and I realized, wow, they are so real to me, and that you can create fictional characters that are as real as people in your real world, right? And sometimes they feel more real. And that clicked in. So when I went to university, when I majored in theater, I also did a minor in creative writing. So it's been there all along.
Yeah.
And it just took a while longer for me to actually finally write that first book. But I realized it'd been probably germinating, you know, since I was 12.
I had a youngster, early teens, tell me just yesterday that she was bored. And I was astounded that a young person would say that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know, there's only one person that can deal with that issue, and that's you.
That's right.
You know, like, and finding that magic within yourself, whether it's going to the Stratford Festival or seeing a great piece of art, or walking down the street and being impressed with how a building's being built.
Yeah.
You know, like how can you be bored?
Well, you know, and you know what, Mike, I think there's one cure for boredom, and that's curiosity. Right?
Yes.
It's curiosity, which is the opposite of apathy, right? Is the opposite of that, right? And and you know, and I know with my students, I'm saying, you know, yes, you want to be actors, but that means you need to also, you know, be in love with design and history and all of it. The more informed you are, the more you live and breathe that, the more you have to bring to the table. And yeah, so I guess it's instilling, you know, and as you said, that youngster, how do you instill in that generation curiosity?
Curiosity, yeah.
Right? Or what can we do to, you know, and it doesn't matter what they're curious about, just get curious about something.
Good advice.
That you want to know more. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what it is, you know?
Based on your schedule and all the things that you're doing, do you get time to enjoy a guilty pleasure now and again? And if so,
well,
what would that be for a guy?
Okay. Well, this is funny because my wife Marion would certainly agree with this. Okay, I think I've actually missed dinner parties by trying to fit the comforter inside a freshly washed duvet cover. So my kind of guilty pleasure is, you know, is when it's time to put the fitted sheet back on the mattress. I cheat. I don't always get it right down on those corners because we've been struggling for half an hour at this point, and usually because of me. It's because of me, and so I think I sort of cut corners on fitted sheets. So my guilty pleasure, I guess, is that I'm a secret fitted sheet cheater.
Well, as guilty pleasures go, that's one of the odder ones.
I figured I'd have to share an odd one with you, right? You know, you know, and there's listening to certain music that is sort of considered sort of like, like poppy romance music. But I love someone putting that on too and just give me a lift. So yeah, I don't think I call it guilty pleasure anymore. I just call it pleasure. I think there's a point where you stop saying it's guilty pleasure. It's just, if it's right, if it's pleasurable, no one's getting hurt and you're not hurting anyone, well, okay.
A question that accompanies that thought,
Yes.
again, I'm thinking of all the things that you do in a day. Are you a fast food kind of guy, or do you have favorite meals that
Okay.
you?
That's a very interesting question, because my go-to instant answer, Mike, would have been favorite meal would have been turkey dinner, all the trimmings, right? Like that's just been for so many years. But my wife and I, starting the new year, as sort of something healthier to do after 2 years of COVID, started moving towards a more plant-based diet, right? And cutting out a lot of alcohol out of our lives and just making it easier. So now, if you ask me what was my favorite meal, I would say it would be a vegetable curry with a cashew cream sauce.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that does sound good.
Oh yeah. I could have a bowl right now. I bring it on. Yes. So that's interesting. Yeah. So I'm segueing into, so now exploring more plant-based recipes and the like. But answer to your question, there have been chapters in my life where I've been a fast food junkie just by necessity, or as I felt was necessity. But no, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I try not to. Right.
Yeah.
Try not to.
Now, one final question, Rod.
Sure.
We know a fair bit about you, and anybody that goes to your website or your Facebook page will learn a great deal about who you are and where you've been with your career. Is there something about you that people don't know?
Wow. Jeez. Well, I think I might have shared that on the show when I talked about that I can translate cat into English.
I was pretty astounded by that fact, I must admit.
Yes, I think. Did you know that cats have like 50 different words for litter? I didn't know that, but yeah, there you go. I know, it's amazing. The things you can learn from your tabby.
You better be careful. You're going to be getting a lot of emails from cat owners.
I know. And I'm going to get people sending me their audio files going, can you translate that for me? What's my cat trying to tell me? I know. I better be careful. And maybe I should just, I'll preface that by saying at least I understand what my cat's saying. I can't speak for everyone else's cats, but I know. Well,
that sounds safe.
Well, yeah, and Hilton, he was a rescue cat. We got him from All Heart Pet Rescue in Powassan near North Bay. And he's been a godsend. That little guy arrived at the start of the pandemic. And I tell you, I don't know, that cat, he is from a different planet. He is he is the reincarnation of the wisdom of the world, I tell you, in that cat. Like he's you watch that, I watch Hilton, it's like, my God, that's meditation right there.
Well, sounds like he's a good fit with the family.
He is a good fit with the family. He certainly is. And yeah. And I know one thing I wanted to share too with you, Mike, before we go, was that and so thank you for the interview, is that I'm going to be in Halliburton signing Grin Reaping on Wednesday, June 22nd at the Masters Bookstore.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'll put more information on my social media. So, because I got so many dear friends from all my years with the Summer Festival in Halliburton, and I would sure love to see everyone on that Wednesday, and and have a chat and get caught up, and it'd be great.
We'll make sure that people put it in their calendar.
Kathy and I haven't confirmed a time yet at the bookstore, but we've set the date.
That's wonderful. Well, we'll remind everyone the Grin Reaping comes out in early June, but you can order your advance copy now.
That's right.
And I'm sure that somewhere along the way, Rod will be coming to a bookstore near you, and you won't want to miss that opportunity. Rod, you're a creative force. We love you to pieces, and I can't thank you enough, Mike, for taking the time to chat with us. I know you've got a very busy day. This has been indeed a delight. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Mike. It is always a pleasure.